Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another dev vlog for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord War Sales, the brand new DLC that we still do not have a freaking release date for. I am on the edge of my seat waiting for this to be delayed again because fall is only the end of fall is 2 months away now, and I imagine, I'm hoping they'll give us like a month's notice before the DLC does actually drop to build up hype, but who knows, knowing Tale Worlds, it will just release like tomorrow or something, and that'll be that. But yeah, hopefully we'll get an announcement date very soon, as we are starting to see some more stuff from them. However, I would love to actually see some gameplay. We are yet to see naval gameplay, just these kind of clips and shorts and stuff. So yeah, on the edge of my seat, I'm hoping they're going to deliver, because they really do need to knock this one out of the park after 2.5 years of no communication. But I do appreciate we are now getting a bunch more, and it is definitely trending in the right direction. But yeah, let's dive into the dev blog. Sorry, a bit of a yappy intro, but yeah, this dev blog is all about the ships of Calradia. We're going to go into detail a bit more about the types of ships from small, medium to large, as well as the cultural bonuses. There are over, I think they mentioned 20 different ships actually in the DLC, each with their own bonuses, their negative, their abilities to upgrade and transform into different types of ships. And each faction will have their own uniqueness of them, whether it's different types of sails which perform better, some are more heavily armored, some can like kind of harness more soldiers on them to be more of a boarding ship, others are focused on skirmishing and burning or ramming. So again, it sounds all really cool. Again, until we see some gameplay, it's hard to say if this is actually going to, in theory, play well, and if you're just going to be F1 F3ing, or if there's actually going to be tactics with the types of ships you're using, the type of ships the AI are using. Again, we have to wait until gameplay, but let's dive into the dev blog. So they start off by saying, "Greetings, warriors of Calradia. As Calradia's coastline opens to trade, raiding, and a full-scale naval warfare, it is time to step abroad and take a closer look at the ships you'll be commanding in war sales. This developer blog will dive into the variation of vessels, their design inspiration, their performance on the high seas, and how you can customize them to suit your own strategy." And again, I'm going to be reading parts of it, and I'm going to be kind of going over parts of it as well, depending on if it's important or not. So again, you can read this for yourself. I'll leave a link to it down below in the description. But yeah, I'll be kind of paraphrasing a lot of this stuff as we go in. So first things first, we get to take a look at the 4 different classes of ships in the game. So first things first, we have light ships. These are affordable and tend to excel in acceleration as well as maneuverability, making them the choice of flanking attacks. However, their lower crew capacity and hit points make them easy targets when caught off guard. Their smaller size also makes them less stable in rough weathers and results in fewer potential upgrades. So again, upgrades I think are going to be a big part of customizing your ships. They've already shown this off in a different dev blog where you can kind of like improve the hull, improve the you can like take out, I think it's like crew size for like making it more speedy and stuff. So I think customization is going to be a big thing. But yeah, light ships seem pretty interesting. Basically, I get the vibe, but light ships are basically going to be your skirmish ships, the ships you're going to stick with archers just to maneuver around the enemy. However, on rough seas, I think they're going to get a big debuff to like their speed and stuff. I think that's how a lot of this stuff is going to work when it says, the difference between rough weather and normal weather in battle. So yeah, I think like light ships are going to be really struggling in these more dangerous weather conditions, which again is something I really love. I love that there's going to be a campaign map feature of like weather that actually affects how the battles and how your ships perform, much like in normal battles how like cavalry perform worse on like snowy battlefields and in forests, etc. Then we move on to medium ships. So medium ships are basically just like a jack of all trades. They strike the balance between price, durability, deck capacity, and upgrade potential. They're versatile and are able to adapt to any role without specializing in any one role. So again, I think you're gonna mainly be using medium ships. Again, light ships do seemingly feel like the budget option in a lot of these situations where you can kind of only really afford light ships at the beginning of the game, so that's what you're going to be going for. But eventually you're going to probably not really have any of them in your fleet, because you can probably just customize and pimp your own ship out to basically be a light ship with loads of archers and able to skirmish and outmaneuver basically anything else. And if it gets caught, it's only going to get caught by light ships, and then the medium ship has more crew capacity, so they'll board and just kill them, So I imagine medium ships will kind of be where you do end up with the majority of your power. Finally, we also have heavy ships, which are built for staying power, wide decks, large crew capacity, thick hulls, and a wealth of upgrades to pick from to allow you to dominate prolonged engagements. But all of this comes at a hefty price in denars. The larger ships tend to make them less responsive when changing direction, but enable them to power through the enemy. So again, large ships definitely seem like they're gonna be like your boarding ships, for ships that you're gonna use to basically just brute force your way through the enemy and just hammer away as much as you can. Again, I think medium ships are gonna probably be the ones that you kind of lean into, with maybe a couple of these heavy ships that kind of come in clutch towards the the middle of the gameplay. You throw these ships into ram or board, and then the medium ships kind of do everything else along them sides. We also do have some trade ships here, and we actually get a glimpse of the trade ship down below in the bottom. Again, with the trade ships offering different upgrades, as well as carrying fewer troops but offer more inventory space as well, because it's going to change depending on, you're going to need like core space and other things. And you get a little glimpse as well right here of the GIF that they're showing of one of the trade cogs. This looks like a Valandian trade cog right here, which is going to offer you some more cargo space, but as I said, less. So overall, I think this is a nice little classification. I do get the vibe that when you do start getting money, you are just going to spam these medium ships, and light ships might become a bit useless. And again, I am a little bit worried that you are just going to be trying to max out like deck capacity just so you can go and board the enemy. Again, it depends how easy it is to actually just board the enemy and get stuck in. And generally in Bannerlord, the amount of ships you like, the more soldiers you have, the more likely you are just going to win. So I'm a little bit worried that you're going to get into a situation where it's just like, yep, I'm gonna strip the ship of everything else and just take as many soldiers as I physically can. But we'll see. Again, until we get some gameplay, we'll have to see. They then also move on to talking a little bit more about the different types of sails and the bonuses that they do offer actually in the game. I don't think they talk about these being cultural specific, because again, every faction has their own different types of ships. But yeah, we get the difference between square sails, Leighton sails, and also hybrid rigs right here. And again, you'll be able to see them. So I imagine on your ships, you'll be able to customize them. You'll probably be able to take like an Empire ship and actually customize it to have different types of sails on, because again, the seas in like the south of Calradia between the Azerai and the Empire are going to be very different probably from the more northern seas of like Sturgia and the Nords, etc. So again, I think you're going to be customizing these to probably fit the style of combat that you're going to be doing, and everything else along those lines. They then also go on to talk a bit more about the ships. So ships in War Sails are inspired by real world vessels that match the cultures of Calradia, from square sailed cogs and round ships in the west to the Leighton rigged galleys and sailboats in the east. Each ship draws inspiration from historical designs. Every faction fields at least one unique ship reflecting its identity, whilst drawing the rest from its fleet from shared regional pools, bringing the total of unique ships to 20. And obviously this doesn't include the upgrades and other things that you can do. However, not all factions have access to every ship class. For instance, the Empire employs vassals across all sizes, whilst the Nords only use light and medium ships geared for boarding. So again, one of the main reasons the Nords want to board is because all of their troops are classed as this new marine class, which means they don't suffer any debuffs or any, I think they've classed it as combat efficiency or capability at sea. So when you're at sea, if you've just got a normal Empire legionary, he's going to have his stats reduced, I think, quite dramatically at sea, compared to the Nords, where every single one of their units doesn't get affected by that, whereas the Empire have to field Marines, which are a new class of unit in War Sails, to not suffer them debuffs at sea. I guess a way to kind of countermeasure that is to make it so that, you know, they can't field these huge ships actually. So, but again, I think this is kind of a nice little way of making it pretty unique. The Nords only having access to these medium ships are not going to be able to field the larger ones. However, as I say that, I'm sure as the player you can just go to an Imperial dockyard and buy large ships, right, and field them in your armies, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. So it's not like you can't, but I think it just means that like the Nord cultures probably aren't going to be fielding them large Imperial ships It's just simply their dockyards can't make them. But I wonder if they maybe take over some Empire dockyards, if they can then start producing these larger ships. They obviously won't be unique to the Nord culture, but again, I'm sure they'll be able to filter them in, or maybe just go to places and buy them as well. The shipyards themselves will be set up by settlement projects. Again, this is one thing I really hope that they do go back and change one day. They've already kind of revamped it a little bit, but it still kind of sucks the project system in the game. So basically, you just have a settlement and you upgrade the dockyard. The higher the dockyard, the more ships you get. I do prefer this system where you do, as you progressively unlock it, you unlock, actual unique stuff like ships, being able to produce more ships and stuff. I think it's quite cool, and it does also mean that some port towns will be more valuable than others because they can start, pumping out these bigger ships. Then go on to talk a bit more about the Empire Navy. Nothing too specific here. Basically, the Empire are going to have access to every ship, and they're going to be focused on these bigger, I feel like they're Byzantine style ships. These big decks where they have lots of soldiers, lots of missiles, and basically these ships are designed for ramming, getting stuck in, and really trying to get stuck, engage in these prolonged engagements. The Azerite, on the other hand, they're more of a galley kind of Mediterranean style ship. You can see more of the Egyptian style flags right there, and also sails, which look pretty cool. Again, they're going to have slower to accelerate, but they will, once they get up to speed, be able to move very fast. Again, they are talking a lot here as well about speed and maneuverability and stuff, which does give me hope that is actually going to having speed and stuff and being able to outmaneuver your opponent is actually going to be an important thing. Then we move down to this ship just looks so sad, right? So this is a Battanian light ship right here. So Battanians draw from the riverine of the woodland traditions, producing vessels reflecting this, inspired by real world Berline. I don't know where that is. Oh yeah, medieval Scotland ship. So Battanian Berline is a light, square-sailed ship with narrow hulls and modest height. I mean, imagine this. I mean, obviously this is a light ship, but imagine this ship being rammed by this ship. It's gonna be insane, right? But yeah, obviously this is a light vessel, so again, they have limited crew capacity, but also they're kind of just meant for skirmishing. I imagine you stick Battanian Thanes on here and they shoot as they run away, maybe fire arrows. Maybe you can even mount an artillery piece on it or something like a ballista. Over here as well, we also get a look at the Kuzite ships as well, which are pretty interesting. So again, they got these latent sails for high speed. They're paired with solid deck spaces and archer positions. So again, I think the Kuzites are going to be very much about this maneuverability gameplay, the skirmisher gameplay with their good horse archers. They're going to be there to firing off arrows and then fleeing and just trying to avoid getting stuck into combat. So again, I think the Nords obviously are going to be really good at this, but having that kind of lighter and medium ship style, I think they're going to really benefit for just kind of chasing down these skirmisher factions who try and get away from you. Then we also move on to the Sturgeons right here. So these are long hulls, open decks, and emphasis on deck capacity. So basically these are going to be your Marines. You're going to stack these with a lot of soldiers who just want to get closer and closer, throw volleys of javelins, axes, and then finally board you and just basically overpower you. They also have a lot of oar strength as well, they go on to talk about. So even if the wind isn't in your favor, you're going to have these sailors hitting away on these oars to try and give you some just extra speed to catch up with the enemy and do get stuck in. Then finally, we also move on to the medieval ships of the Valandians. Again, these are absolute broody, boxy holes. These are going to be your tank ships. Again, just filled with crossbowmen. I believe there's even artillery that you can stick on them as well. So again, these are, as they describe them, the floating fortress. So again, Valandia, I think, are going to be a lot of fun, filled with these crossbowmen and other units. And then finally we get the Viking longships of the Nords right here, which you can kind of expect. They're going to rely heavily on oar power, so again, not necessarily on the wind, which I think is going to be huge. If there is a big differentiation between sail power and oar power, these factions are going to be deadly in these non-windy areas, or when you're going against the wind, for example. These factions like the Sturgeons, like the Nords, they're going to be so deadly because that oar power is going to allow them to maneuver and basically just catch ships and not be kited for the entire game. Finally, we move on to the ship customization that we have access to in the game. Now, they've already shown this off in another dev blog. I'll put it up on your screen right now. Again, obviously UI and everything like that is probably changed since they posted this a couple months ago. But you can kind of get a nice little glimpse of the actual kind of upgrade system and what is actually available to upgrade. I think this is a really nice system, giving you the ability to customize these ships and have visual changes to them. But yeah, they basically talk about, kind of the different ships have different upgrades and different systems. so the lighter ships won't have access to, say, the heavier ones. The heavier ships will be focused more around like making them tankier, kind of giving them more capacity. And I also like the idea as well, they talk about exchanging, so you'll be exchanging maybe inventory space so that you can fit more soldiers on the ship, and I really like that kind of give and take with it. In this little gif right here, you can see they're changing between a ballista to actually having like shields for your archers to protect them at kind of range combat, so the differences in that are going to be quite interesting. And yeah, being able to like maybe boost your, this is what it was called, it wasn't combat efficientness, it was seaworthiness. I think this is what like dictates how good soldiers are at sea, so obviously making your normal soldiers actually perform decently at sea is going to be very, very important. But yeah, the cool little kind of battlement. Again, I'm excited to see more of these upgrades and really dive into it, because this could be a really, really cool system. I still wish there were like more stuff when it came to upgrading these ships, so I would love for them to implement like systems where you actually had to go and like source for timber and the resources yourself. It would just make the game feel like so much more connected to it, you know, like if you actually had to go out and source for resources to upgrade your ship and stuff, like I don't know, I feel like you just feel so much more connected to them, and it would give you something else to do. But anyway, I digress. Finally, they also talk about as well being to change up different upgrades, so again you can add in braziers, I guess, for fire arrows. So by the sounds of it, like the fire arrows will be tied to the ship upgrades rather than just everyone having access to it or whatever. So again, you might want to focus on that for more of like the battalion ships, and also on the because like ships who are focused on skirmishing, being able to burn sails and then run away and just continue just to shoot them to pieces is going to be important. I imagine you're also going to be able to get like extra arrows so your archers just never run out. And they also talk as well about figureheads as well, and these will provide bonuses as well, attaching to ships, improving crew morale, or enhancing ramming or boosting throwing weapon damage, etc. Again, I really like that, adding this to actually give like stat bonuses. I think that's a really good idea, and again, it makes it a reason instead of just a mundane choice to, oh, that looks kind of cool, I'll take that. No, you're actually picking like stat bonuses and stuff, which is really cool. It'd be nice as well if maybe it could like actually be like enhanced as well, so maybe if I get like a legendary figurehead, the bonuses are even better or whatever, or maybe if I have really good stats in smithing, I could improve it and stuff. Just combining it in with all that stuff would be pretty nice. Then finally, they do also talk about ship upgrades being cultural specific as well. So for example, the battalions will have specific upgrades that the Empire won't have access to, and you also need a port of a similar level. By the looks of the map as well, which is kind of interesting, I think the battalions only have access to one port. So if that settlement gets taken, what happens to the battalion cultural specific upgrades? Do they just go? Do they stay in the settlement? I guess they just stay in that settlement, and that settlement will be giving battalion upgrades but will be gone. So for example, they mentioned that like if you want to acquire the battalion upgrade, you're going to have to go, or like boarding upgrade, you're going to have to go to a battalion port to install it. I kind of get it. It gets you moving around a little bit more and searching for these good upgrades for cultural specific stuff, but also like how hard is it to upgrade? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense, I guess, because like these cultures are all specifically good at certain things. So an Empire carpenter wouldn't be able to install something that they don't know about or they don't focus on. So I guess it does make sense. It just feels also a little bit weird. But again, I'm not too fussed about it. And that's going to do it for the dev blog. So overall, I think this was a very, very cool dev blog. I still feel like we need to see some actual ship gameplay. Like, I'm kind of like, every time I see them release a dev blog, I'm like, oh, another dev blog without more gameplay. You know, the fall is only 2 months away from being completely over, you know, and there's still no release date. So I don't know, like, this is a great dev blog. I actually really like it. I think this has been their best dev blog yet, showing off all the different ships. And again, it's given me a lot of hope that there's going to be a lot of uniqueness in these naval engagements, and with the type of ships people are bringing, all that stuff does sound really cool. I just want to see some gameplay. I just want to see what these ships actually kind of look like on the battlefield. And as I said, if it isn't being delayed, which I don't know, I'm starting to have visions of it being delayed. I don't know, I just feel like you need a month to build up hype, right? You need a month of gameplay, and like, oh yeah, it's coming out late November. So if it's coming out late November, we should get a release date in the next couple weeks, right? And if we don't get a release date by the end of October, I'm like, there's no way it's releasing this year, I don't think. I mean, maybe December, but I don't know. I think then maybe it's just probably January, February, which I really hope is not the case, because, you know, we're itching for some new combat. But also, one thing that does make me feel like it is on the horizon is the release release of 1.3 into beta, that's going to be the release patch for War Sales. So the fact that they're testing this now, I don't think there's any like insane issues that have really popped up and have like basically blocked them completely. So I think with 1.3 getting patches and stuff and on its way, I think we're going to be getting a November release. That's going to be my guess. A whole of October to work. Hopefully a release date in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, we'll move on from there. It does also make me kind of feel like, though, if they didn't announce a release date here, I don't know. Maybe they're waiting on like a new trailer or something to fully give it. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled. Of course, I'll be one of the first people to let you guys know if there is a release date. Don't you worry about that. Whether it's on my community page or I make a video on it, I'll be sure to let you know. Let me know what you guys thought of this. Again, as I said, I think this is a great actual dev blog, and they did a good job showing off, and everything sounds really positive and cool. Whereas I feel like with a couple of the other dev blogs have been a bit like, I don't like that, or I like that, but I don't like that. But yeah, this one I think honestly has been completely positive. So yeah, this has definitely been the best one yet. But if you guys enjoyed, drop a like, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought of the dev blog, and I'll see you in the next one.